So today is sometimes known as Good Shepherd Sunday, when the Gospel reading is always part of John chapter 10, which talks quite a lot about Jesus being the shepherd and about sheep following him. So in John 10 verses 2 and 3, we hear, "The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out." In verse 14, we hear Jesus saying, "I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me." And continues into 15 to say, "Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep." And then finally, that I've just read in the Gospel, verse 27, where Jesus says, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me." These words are a reminder to us in this Easter season that we do belong to God, who calls us all to follow him, and that Jesus laid down his life for each of us, so that we might know that we're truly loved, forgiven, and should be living life to the full. Today is as well our annual parochial church meeting, a meeting that has to happen every year. The meeting part will happen after this service. As in previous times, I like to include most of what I want to say in this sermon time, not least so that you all hear what I'm saying, because I know some of you will have to leave. So what we should be doing is acknowledging here not just what has happened since our last annual meeting, which was in June of 2021, but also where we're going, what we believe God's vision is for us as a church as we continue through 2022. We do so knowing that we are called to follow the shepherd who knows us. And that doesn't just mean knowing us to say hello as you pass in the street, but knowing us inside and out, warts and all. And yet he loves us fully. Because Jesus laid down his life for us, we do have that possibility of enjoying eternal life. But what is eternal life? So often we can define eternal life as heaven. But is it only that? We say God is eternal. St. Augustine defines eternity as the continuous now. That's to say, for God there is no past and future, but just now. So eternity is here and now. God is here and now. Eternal life is here and now. And just what are we doing to live that eternal life? Like God's kingdom here on earth in Wendover now. Church isn't the only place by any means that God is at work. So how do we join in? Last year at our APCM, I used photographs to illustrate what had been happening. And I think many of you were surprised at just how much had happened despite our time of lockdown. Lots has been happening since June as we slowly emerged, and quite a lot of our life as a church has returned. So I'm going to do something similar today, but I'm putting it in the context of our mission action plan, which we reviewed in September 21, and set a few additional goals, some of which we've achieved and others which we haven't yet. The photographs I'm going to share are grouped into our three main priorities of children, young people and families, which has been a real area of growth, pastoral and community in and out. So children, young people and families is the area that we gave to Nadine when she came 2.5 years ago. And as I say, is an area that's flourishing. We've got pictures there of sparklers, which happens every week up here. Over 50 families have been reached in the time that sparklers has been happening. And we've got baptisms sort of coming out of that. It's always a wonderful time. If you're ever around on a Monday morning, drop in and have a cup of coffee and see what's happening. We have Ignite. Some of them have just gone upstairs. That's a growing group, continuing to develop their faith. And then we have Surge and Older Surge. Such positively led work by Becky, along with Catherine and Natalie and Bridget. The Older Surge, the sort of 16 plus, meet once a month and have some extraordinary conversations. We've had confirmations with Bishop Allen. Some of them you may remember the one last July where we started outside and then the rain had other ideas, so we ended up coming inside. But again, that was a wonderful occasion where quite a lot of our young people were confirmed. Nadine and I have been able to go into schools. We go into Wendover Church of England Junior School on a fairly regular basis. And the right-hand picture there is the Leavers service. They couldn't be here in church, but I went and we were outside as they came, the year 6 came to the end of their time. And the left-hand picture is when we went into John Hampden School at Christmas. We tend to go there when it is festivals. The children have become more and more involved in the worship. That started in Zoom, when we were doing our Zoom services. A lot of them were encouraged to be part of that. And since we've been back in church, they've come and been involved in all sorts of different things. Oh, and Christingle, sorry. The Christingle service that we had at the beginning of December last year was a truly all-age service when I'm sure some of you that were here perhaps had never been involved in Christingle before, and that really was fantastic. In our work with our young people, the challenges are we need more leaders and volunteers, especially for Surge. We really want to strengthen the relationships that we've got in the schools. A thought of trying to introduce something on a Sunday afternoon for those who are involved in sports and tend not to be able to come in the morning. Moving on to our pastoral work. First of all, you perhaps remember when you came first back into church and we had all the seats out. I think that was quite a moment when people felt able to come back. We were masked. But the first times were actually for weddings. And there we have 3 of the weddings that we had last year. So Miles and Rebecca Lewis, and that's Harriet Chambers. And then Mark and Siobhan were the one that had the amazing flowers inside and out. So they've been real times to rejoice, as well as our baptisms that we've had. We've been able to remember, and in 2021, the service in November was really poignant because so many families hadn't been able to mourn in the way that they'd wanted to, had much, much smaller funerals, not being able to be in church for those. So that was a really important thing to be doing. And then we went outside and planted a tree in memory of all of those who we'd lost through COVID. I put pictures there, the creativity that we have within our church in the flowers, and thank you to those who are part of that. And I know that some of our home groups have restarted and they've been a source of support, as well as Sages, the group that meets on the third Thursday of the month at St Anne's, or the Christian Centre rather, for those who are at home. The challenges in our pastoral work are finding people to lead and to do that work, to be trained, and to reintroduce our prayer ministry. The third area, community in and out. I don't have a photograph, but one of the things that's been fantastic is our Thursday morning 10 o'clock communion service that is really flourishing, where there's usually about 15 of us come just for a quiet communion service with a little bit of input from whoever's leading that. And although it's always confusing with the APCMs, because actually we're talking about 2021, but we're well into 22. And the wonderful thing that's happened at that 10 o'clock service is that Zoe, who I baptised last November, then asked for confirmation, and Bishop Allen came at the end of March to confirm her. And then 2 weeks ago on Thursday, the baby that Zoe and Ian were expecting arrived, and Connor's been at the last two 10 o'clock services. So there's a growth there. That's really, really wonderful. But it is a very special service. So again, if you're around, do come and join us for that. So more pictures of us worshipping together. And then in November, Bishop Stephen, the Bishop of Oxford, came to Wendover Deanery and spent quite a lot of time here during the afternoon. He met with a few people, including Paul talked about climate action in Wendover, and Sylvia about the Wendover dementia support. And then in the evening, he was here talking to people across the deanery. We've had our churchyard tidy-ups and eco work going on in the churchyard. We get support from the parish council, and we always are very grateful to Simon Fortune and Harry Robinson for the work that they do to keep the grass looking so amazing. Our eco-church work is developing, and in the annual report, I've put a sentence in about it, say we were working towards the Bronze Award. That was awarded to us in January, and as you go out, look on your right-hand side in the porch, and you'll see the plaque that's there. It's really good work. There's a lot of energy about it. It's education. We've been involved in the Great Big Green Week across the village, and hope that that will grow. Just our fantastic shop on the High Street, with so many products that are really beautiful and very, very popular. So we give thanks to Helen Blakeman and all the team who work there. A bit later on, Matt will let you know just how much they contribute to enable us to be doing the work that we want to do. New technology, we've got live streaming, it's happening now, but not just on a Sunday. We've live streamed weddings and memorial services, which means that people can access them. And I know those who are at home now are always grateful to be able to be part of the services. So thank you to those who've made it happen. And then we got a new website. And a big thank you to Ian for all of that. And I know that that is widely used. The challenges for us as we think about community in and out is trying to introduce some sort of discipleship course, to rebuild up our life groups, and to continue to work to be more visible. As we say, we're at the heart of the community. We need to acknowledge that things have changed, that the number of volunteers that are around mean that sometimes things can't happen, sometimes things have to be done differently. But there is growth. We do have new families, and some of you who are here now are new, and we welcome you to our church. We also need to be thinking about how we organise ourselves. I popped in a couple of slides that Ian used in his sermon in March, where he encourages to be thinking about whether we just come to church or we belong to church, and what that means in terms of all the roles that need to be done. As I walked into church at sort of 9:25, there were already half a dozen people here getting up the music stands, getting up all the music things, all the live streaming equipment, all the stuff that's needed for communion, all the booklets to be handed out. There's such a hive of activity, and encouraging more and more people to come and to be part of that. Not just that, but that's one of the areas where we really do need people to be getting more involved. Ian put this picture up of asked us who buys the toilet rolls. Is it the church warden? We're looking to change how we can we're having a change of church wardens. You'll hear more about that in this meeting. But thinking about who the roles belong to. So really one of the things I want you to do is to think about how can you help. Oh, that was the role of, again, we summarised what the role of the church warden really should be. A whole list of areas, and I'm going to turn so that I can read them and encourage you to think. Coffee making, pastoral visitor, being involved in social justice projects, being a reader, a musician, an intercessor, being an assistant warden, being in the subgroups that we're developing in the PCC around HR, finance and governance and the building, caring for our church building, hospitality, welcoming, flowers, leading study. Those are but a few of the things that happen in church, around church, and we need more people to be doing. So as I say, I really encourage you to have a think about how you can be involved. My last slide is acknowledging significant hellos and goodbyes. And we're all deeply saddened, and when we lost Peter last July, we all miss him, but not least Marion. We welcomed Michelle, who's sitting at the back, last September. Michelle's here as an ordinand at Wycliffe College, but also working here. I didn't have a picture of her, so I couldn't put up a picture of Amanda when we said goodbye to her as an administrator. And then at the beginning of January, we welcomed Julie, and I know that many of you have met her and appreciate what she's doing. And then I put up Matthew, and that's why it says changes, because on the 2nd of July, Matthew will go from being Mr. Routledge to the Reverend Routledge. So that's a major change that's going to be happening. So there's lots for us to ponder. And I found this couple of paragraphs, roots on the web, which I'm going to just read to you because I think they say a lot that we need to be thinking about. Sometimes we behave as if caring for the sheep is enough, and that anything beyond that is someone else's problem. Or, put it another way, do we work to challenge and change unjust structures? Or do we respond only to the pastoral issues that they tend to cause? Of course, there's nothing wrong with doing the latter. We're all called to serve and care for one another, especially for those in need, those who are the poorest, who are on the fringes of what we regard as normal society, those who are persecuted, and so on. The question is that enough? As we continue to think about the sheep metaphor, Caring for sheep is more than search and rescue. It can be that, but it's more. And the gospel stories about finding lost sheep encourage us to think about that in a human context. Caring for sheep also requires mending fences and anticipating problems further down the line, so that the sheep don't have to face the same risks again. Being a shepherd is more than tending to pastoral problems. It's about fixing structural things that are not right or not working. How are we doing? Last week, our gospel included the passage about Peter being encouraged by Jesus to feed the sheep. How can we feed the sheep, as Peter was encouraged to, and be part of showing God's kingdom here on earth? Amen. Quickly, this afternoon, there is a walk that Michael and Carol are leading. Sorry, didn't hear that bit. They're going up into the woods where the bluebells are quite stunning at the moment. So, leaving here at 2:30. It's Christian Aid Week starting next Sunday. So our services next Sunday we'll have David Blackmore preaching for us and telling us more about that work. At the back on the table, just past the door, are envelopes. Jeanette and Stephen will be there giving out envelopes to be delivered but not to be collected. That's what we did last year. People delivered envelopes to houses, and then people are encouraged to take the money back to the envelope back to Just. So please, if you can help with that, that would be an enormous help. And then next Sunday is when we've got going to be a fantastic afternoon. There'll be afternoon teas available, but all sorts of entertainment in storytelling, music, poems from Mark, drama from some of our children, and some of the young people of the Drama Hub in Wendover. That's 2 till 5. There's not a charge, but you'll be encouraged to make donations to Christian Aid. 5th of June is part of the Platinum Jubilee weekend, and we would like to celebrate here at St Mary's. We're going to have a Songs of Praise at 5:30, and on the board at the back are a list of 10 hymns. If you want to put a tick beside 4 of them, then we'll see which are the most popular. But I tell you that we are putting in Praise My Soul, the King of Heaven, and The Lord's My Shepherd, so they are on the list. But we know that Praise My Soul is the Queen's favourite, and I think The Lord's My Shepherd's a popular one as well. So please choose hymns. Great Missenden Church are going to come and join us. And we'd like to serve afternoon teas to the community between 2:30 and 4:30. But we can only do that if you help us. So again, there are lists for people to set up and serve, make cakes and scones. So please, if names don't go on, we can't do it. That's what I was talking about. If people aren't able to help us, then we can't do things. And I think that would be a real shame if we can't do that. So can I encourage you to have a look? I know people will be away. It is a bank holiday weekend. But please, let's try and do something for Wendover here at St Mary's. And encourage you to think about the concerts that are happening. And I think that's all for now.
Thanks, Sally.